All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started and we'll see if some other people join. This is being recorded, so we will be able to send anything that I go over afterwards. But so excited to meet all of you. I would love, since we're kind of a small, intimate group here, if you guys could turn your cameras on, it'd be great to see all. I don't care what you look like or where you are or anything, but that way it can feel a little bit more interactive. My name is Allie Danziger. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a internship recruiting and training platform called Ampersand. And we're going to talk today about how to kill it in your internship. I'd love to know, and again, if y'all could turn your cameras on, that'd be helpful. If not, maybe through one of the icons or something. I'd love to know if anyone here has ever had an internship or if you currently have an internship. Faith, since you're a brave soul with your camera on, what about you?
Yes, I have had an internship. I've had a couple. I had one last summer and the summer before.
Awesome. What's your major?
Management. I actually just changed to management.
Okay, great. And what about some of the other folks on the call? Sarah, Kayla, Kashia, Emily. Kayla, have you ever had an internship?
No, it was like I've just attended workshops, but never an actual internship.
Great. Well, hopefully this will be useful for you. Faith, I'm sure you'll get a lot out of it too, to participate in your internship. Anyone else willing to share?
Sorry, my camera isn't working recently, but basically like the internship I had this summer was, I'm pre-dental, so I had an internship and like a shadowing opportunity with a local orthodontist, which was pretty cool.
Great.
Hi, this is Rena. So I'm on the alumni board, so I'm like ancient out in the workforce and have my own company, but I'm just super excited to hear what you have to share. So I'm listening in from that perspective.
Rena, I hear some background noise, which is totally fine.
Fun. He's very cool.
I'm doing this at the center because
he's 18.
I have a 3 and a 4-year-old at home, so I totally get it. Do you have any interns working for you, or have you ever in your company?
I have 2 grad students from UT from kind of the advertising department, and then we also have UC Berkeley undergrad who's doing kind of a design focused internship with us. So yes, we utilize interns regularly and have had great success with that.
Great. Awesome. Well, good to hear some of y'all's background. If anyone else feels like sharing, would love for y'all to chime in. Again, it's a small group, so let's have some fun with the dialogue and conversation. And feel free to interrupt me if you guys have any questions. I do have a PowerPoint just to kind of help guide the conversation. But again, I always love when we're doing this stuff, if it can be. I love Zoom more than Google, because then I can see y'all's faces while we're talking. All right. So really, the topic here is how to kill it in your internship. Just a little background on me. As I mentioned, my name is Allie Danziger. I previously had a PR and marketing agency for 12 years called Integrate. I founded it in 2009, and we were really the first social media agency. I sold the company in 2018, stayed on as president and co-founder for the next 3 years, and just stepped away in May of this year to focus on Ampersand full time. And in that time, I hired about 225 or so entry-level professionals or interns. And I loved using interns as a way to both tap into fresh ideas as well as fill our long-term talent pipeline. But there were a lot of frustrations that I often found with what education in all schools and all universities were teaching young professionals to prepare them for the workforce. I just have been on campus throughout the afternoon today, and was at this really great class at the Macomb School that was for freshman honor students about how to negotiate your job offer, which is amazing that UT has those types of resources on campus, but not everyone has access to that. And not everyone goes to a UT and has some incredible career services or on-campus resources. So really came up with this business as a way to democratize access to that first really hard to get internship, especially for people who don't have resources like students at UT often do, but still don't take advantage of for the most part. The biggest problem with young professionals is there's a decreased confidence in higher education. There's a decreased use of career services. Only 6 in 10 report to ever going to their career services department, and 83% say that they were dissatisfied with their experience. So, obviously there's a missing link here. And then, as I mentioned, colleges without resources, which leads to huge underemployment. 53% of recent college grads are either unemployed or underemployed, and 40% of students have only had one internship, when really having an internship can set you up on the path to having 10 more years of higher wages and higher earning once you're in the workforce. So very quickly, what Ampersand does is we offer 30 hours of asynchronous job skills training, as well as ongoing mentorship, help with resumes and personal branding, build out your network. And then at the end of that curriculum, you get matched with paid internship opportunities. On the business side, what was our business person's name? I think Rebecca was your name. You're basically hiring from a vetted talent pool, where we de-risk that internship hire. Your interns have a resource every step of the way, which is great for our interns and business partners. We match our businesses with only 3 interns at a time, so they're not sifting through thousands of resumes, but really the best matched candidates, and really filling that talent pipeline with diverse candidates. So that's just a little background on me. Here's what our, some of the courses that are within our curriculum, and it's really engaging asynchronous content. We do it in fun ways. That's no video is longer than 20 minutes, but most of them are like 3 minutes. All right, so that's the spiel, but the biggest gaps that we really see are clear communication. Sorry, struggling with this. Professionalism and respect, and understanding what that means, expectation setting, and understanding how to really ask the right questions. So that's what we'll talk about right now, because if you can master most of these, you can certainly kill it in that internship. We're not going to talk so much about how to get an internship, but I'm happy to answer any of those questions if you have them. So kicking off your internship, some tips. Before you start, research the organization, really understand what you can from their social media, them in the news recently, what's going on with the organization, so that you can come in and understand the right questions to ask and make it seem like you know what you're talking about. Ask any key questions before day one. So what's the dress code? Is there anything you need to bring? One thing that a lot of people don't realize that you do need to bring on your first day is probably a void check or some information so that you can set up your direct deposits with the HR team members, your driver's license, so that they can do some verification of your eligibility for employment if they haven't done that before day one. And those are things even if you're going to be a remote intern. So just some things to keep in mind, but you'll want to ask that in advance. And then on day one, you'll want to, if you can, do it in advance and think about what you want your SMART goals to be. And if you have the opportunity to sit down with your manager and set those SMART goals, SMART being specific, measurable, achievable, specific, measurable, achievable, results oriented, or realistic? Now I can't remember. And timely. Which one is it? I'm forgetting on the R.
I've heard realistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are multiple versions.
Yeah,
I
was just questioning myself. Like, someone check me there. You'll want to schedule a weekly and recurring meeting with your manager. Get that on the calendar, and then hold yourself and them accountable to it. So if time passes and that meeting doesn't end up happening, follow up with them. Hey, I know you ended up scheduling a meeting over our Wednesday check-in. Just wanted to follow up and see if we could get some time on the calendar to reschedule it. Show them that it's important to you even if they're not putting priority into it, because if you show up to that meeting then prepared with questions, with value add for them, they'll then start putting more importance into that meeting. And it's more face time for you and more opportunity to show how great you are and make sure that you're getting the best experience from that internship. Make sure that you start to understand what the communication preferences are. So like when, and ask questions if you don't know. When are people slacking versus emailing versus calling versus texting? And those are very normal questions to ask both your manager as well as your peers. And I mean, this is something that in the remote environment, we don't get as much of a chance for, but there's absolutely still opportunities to observe other team members. And then when you see team members, people who are not interns, but are, at the manager level or have recently just started a job there, see if you can take them to coffee, even if that coffee means a Zoom coffee where, you can ask them 15 minutes worth of questions, how they get into that role. What would their advice be for someone like you? What's their favorite project they worked on? What's some things to watch out for? Those informational interviews that I'm sure you've heard about the importance of informational interviews elsewhere to get the internship, but once you're in the role to network around the organization is a key way to make sure that you're continuously put on valuable projects, you're top of mind to your colleagues, and again, getting the best experience from from your internship. And you want to just stay busy. So that does not mean busy work, but it is very common for managers to accidentally forget to give projects to their interns. It's not intentional. It's not because they don't value you. It's just not within their routine yet. And so force your way into their routine so that you can stay busy. Ask to be on calls. Hey, can I just join? I'll stay silent. I'll take notes for you. And then, we can talk afterwards. If there's no chance to talk afterwards, just send them an email. Hey, I heard that you're going to be doing X as an action item from the meeting. Can I take a first stab at it? There's no reason that that manager would say no to that. And you've just inserted yourself into a project that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to elsewhere. And if you think about your internship as just this opportunity to like amass as much experience and opportunities as possible, that's how you'll get the best experience from that internship. And just over communicate. So if you have questions, if you're doing something, show your value constantly so that they see the great work that you're doing. Again, it's not intentional, but oftentimes interns can get forgotten about. And so reminding them of the great work that you're doing and the valuable work that you're doing can be incredibly valuable to then land that into a full-time offer, an extended internship, a letter of recommendation, all the things that you're doing the internship for. You're doing it for the experience, of course, but you're doing it to get your next job. They know that, you know that, and so get as much from it as you can to help position you for that next role. So one of the biggest things that we talk about is executive presence. And executive presence is really like one of those things that is so hard to identify and wasn't really even a term until someone wrote a book about it 10 years ago. But it's just that like thing that you notice about someone. They walk into a room and you notice them. It's that I Googled it, like what's the definition of it? The blend of poise, self-confidence, control, and style. It's communication, it's self-management, it's self-regulation. It's just basically how you show up. And so there's kind of a quiz that you can do for yourself to self-assess. Do I have the executive presence that businesses are really looking for? And excuse me while I kind of read some of these terms to you and what it means. So authenticity, obviously this is a word we all talk about, but ask yourself, am I real, genuine, transparent, and sincere in my interactions with others? Would they agree that I say what I mean and mean what I say? Integrity, do I always act based on core values and beliefs, live up to high standards of morality? Concern, do I show genuine, consistent concern in others and encourage them to develop and promote a healthy, sustainable culture? Restraint, do I maintain a calm disposition and avoid being impulsive, overly emotional, or extreme? This is one that I struggle with. I tend to get very excited. Humility, am I aware of my strengths and weaknesses? Practical wisdom, am I known for bringing insight and judgment? Confidence, we know what that means. Composure, would others say I'm steady in a crisis? Resonance, do I really connect with others? Am I thought of as someone who is attentive? Vision, do people see me as on par with top trends? Appearance, I know we want to not think that appearance matters, but would others say I look and act and dress the part of a leader? Is my dress polished? Am I groomed? Do I have the energy and vitality of that of an executive? Intentionality, do I clarify direction? And would others say I keep the group on track? Inclusive, do I actively involve others, welcome diverse points of views, and empower others? Interactivity, do I promote an impersonal, relaxed dialogue? And assertiveness, would others say I speak up? So these key points, these keywords are things you can kind of check yourself on, because whether we know it or not, these are the things that we're looking at and then identify as someone who seems like they have executive presence. And in large organizations, executive presence is oftentimes something that is part of your review at every stage of your career. Do you have the executive presence to lead this team from an intern all the way to the CEO? So it's something to just keep in mind. Obviously, you're not at different stages of your career, the expectations are different. But again, something just to be aware of. So then just some clear communication tips to keep in mind, especially in a problem, but anytime, face-to-face communication is key, especially in this virtual remote world. What I often tell myself and others is if you've reworded the email more than twice, pick up the phone. Like pick up the phone or ask to get on Zoom or Slack video or whatever's the right face-to-face way for you. But at that point, you're struggling with how to say it. And there's probably going to be some reason that needs to be a face-to-face communication. You want to go into the communication clear on your goal and the agenda. Start with questions. So get them talking first so that you can understand their disposition, their mood on the topic that you guys are communicating about, and then actively listen. Don't just listen, but actively listen. You're nodding your head, you're engaged, you're saying things like, or, and then asking follow-up questions into what they're saying. You want to be direct and share examples. People love a story. We just had someone else, right? People love a story, and they can, when you tell a story, they can picture and visualize what you're saying versus, just talking. So as much as you can use examples to prove your point, the better. And be open to feedback. And when you're hearing the feedback, listen all the way through. Don't just take it as negative. Take that feedback as a way to learn and grow from the experience, and feel free to offer feedback too when something isn't working, as well as you're doing it in that really direct way. And follow up. So after almost every piece of communication in the business world, there's going to be some action. If there's not an action, then it probably wasn't a very productive conversation. And so use that as an opportunity to follow up and try as the intern in the relationship to be the first person to follow up. So let's say that there is an action item of you're going to look up this person on LinkedIn, learn more about them, and figure out the best way for your boss to reach out to them. Immediately after the conversation, if you need more time to put that together, send them an email or send them a note saying, "Hi, Allie, really enjoyed our conversation. Here's the action item for me. I'm going to be working on this. You're going to be working on this. I'll have a response back to you by Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then if Wednesday at 4 p.m., comes along and you're not going to have it by Wednesday at 5 o'clock, then respond to that email and say, "I'm so sorry, something happened." Be honest and truthful in whatever did happen. I'm not going to be able to have this to you by this date, but I will have it to you by the follow-up date. And as long as that does not impact anything on their timeline, that should be fine. And you might want to ask beforehand, is this necessary? Can I get this to you at 7 p.m. tonight? Or if not, is it no longer, it might not be something that they need you to work on anymore if you're not going to be able to get it to them at the timeline. And so be aware of that and don't miss your deadlines, but we all know that it happens. Just in terms of appropriate response times, I think this is always like a key thing to keep in mind, especially if you're new to the workforce. But in chat, which is usually Slack, but maybe Microsoft Teams, the appropriate response time is on your work hours ASAP within 30 minutes. So set up notifications on your phone if you need to, notifications on your computer or desktop. And then if you're going to be out and you can't respond to those notifications, then pause your notifications and put an away message so it's clear during your work hours why you're not going to be available, unless you're in a meeting with the whole team or something like that. But like right now, I just did that because I didn't want my Slack notifications coming in while we're on this conversation. And so I said, nobody Slack me for the next 30 minutes, but I also paused my notification so it doesn't make a noise if they do. But usually 30 minutes is the expectations. Email while you're working, I'd say ASAP within the hour is the norm expectation. And that's something that you can discuss with your manager in advance or on the first day of your internship to make sure that you're both very clear on what that expectation is. Some company, I mean, this is totally dependent on companies, and some companies will say, we want you working, not checking your emails, turn your email off for the day and just be focused. And that type of company probably is going to be emailing really regularly. The two companies that I've started, I'm an emailer. And so we're constantly emailing and communicating and collaborating. And that's the job most of the time, less about like actually diving in and doing stuff. And so that expectation certainly at our company is within the hour. And then a phone call or missed call would be ASAP. While not scheduled to work, again, check these with your manager, and these are the types of conversations that you can have. But if you're not scheduled to work and your manager is calling you, I would assume that that's fairly urgent, and I would call them back the same day. Maybe text them, hey, can I get back to you tomorrow? And they'll let you know if that's something that's super urgent that you need to get back to them that same day. So in managing messages, there's a stigma against micromanagement, but by over communicating yourself, then you can prevent micromanagement and uncertainty by saying, here's when I will have this to you by, or I'm going to miss our deadline and here's why, and here's when I will have it by. Then you're going to get in front of it before your manager is, messaging you saying, why haven't I heard from you? What's going on? What's the deal with this project? So regularly update your manager. And you want to acknowledge that you heard or received the message. So by just simply responding and saying, received, I'll have this done for you by X date, or received, I'm working on this now, or whatever it is, can be really valuable because no response can make managers very nervous. And you don't want to just sit tight on a message. So replying with your next steps is, again, very valuable. So we've all heard it's so great to fake, you want to fake it till you make it. And of course, there is certainly some fake it till you make it. We all deal with imposter syndrome. I certainly do. I was just talking about that with these Macomb students I was just talking to. And so it's really important, except it can get you into trouble. And so you want to be aware of the concerns there and not overly faking it, and being really open and transparent when you are having a problem, when you do have a question, if there's something you don't understand, if there's something you can't find, because wasting time on a project not done correctly can really be frustrating to your managers as well. So just, something you want to think about in those internships. And you can just request clarification. Ask for a call with your manager if there's something you're not clear on. Focus on your strengths if it's something brand new. So like, I'm really good at marketing and I know social media. You've asked me to write a blog post. I've never written a blog post before. I found these 3 blog posts on your website. I just want to confirm, is this the type of blog that you want me to write? I'd love to start with an outline, give you that, what I'm going to write, and then have you take a look at it before before I give you the final blog post. And don't assume that the blog post that has been on the website is exactly what they're looking for. Admit what you need help with or don't know. be upfront with what you know and don't know. I've never been on our website, or I've never posted something on our website directly. How do we do that? I know we're on WordPress, but can you walk me through? Is there a video training on how to do this before I just go in and start messing with WordPress? Stay organized. So especially if it's something you've never done before, as I've mentioned multiple times, just stay in touch with the manager on your progress, any changes, potential delays. And then mindset. We talk a lot about having a growth mindset and doing something new that is outside of your comfort zone that you may need to fake it a little bit, or maybe you faked it to get the opportunity, can be a really great opportunity for you to add more skills to your resume, add more work to your portfolio, and just overall give you more exposure into the workforce. So wanted to open it up for a question to see, what would you do? You realize that you won't meet the original deadline and you'll need an extension. How would you communicate this to your manager? I'd love to hear from you guys.
I would say, honestly, right away, I would let them know. But I'm just like speaking from experience, because over the summer I was working with a team and some of our deadlines weren't communicated, and it led to some conflicts like down the road. So I think just letting them know like right away, I'm not going to be able to meet this deadline, is better than not telling them and then it ends up conflicts down the road.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any experiences from that to share? No.
Yeah, I would just agree. I reach out as early as possible. I think that your rule of face-to-face is like usually better. It's usually better if you can have a face-to-face conversation, or if not face-to-face these days, Zoom or phone call. But yeah, I mean, from the manager's perspective or supervisor's perspective, they might have to change their plans because you're not able to make that deadline, and maybe it's doable, maybe it's not. But the earlier they have that information, the easier it is to adapt on their part.
Yeah. Great. Well, that is, oh no, that's not all I've got. Sorry, I've got one more slide. So closing out strong. So what you've killed it in your internship, you've done a great job of over communicating and keeping your manager in touch. To close out strong. So every week we recommend that on Friday afternoons, our professionals send their manager a recap email of everything that they worked on for the week and everything that they'll be working on next week. It's just a really great way to over communicate and keep yourself accountable to those activities, as well as keep your manager in the know. And so at the end, it's a really great way to take all those emails and share a recap of everything that you've learned and major highlights of projects that you did. That can help you to build out your portfolio. That's just something that I recommend and we do, but it's a really great way to build out your portfolio as well. And then share that portfolio with them. Share the great projects, the projects that you're most proud of, and how you're now going to be presenting yourself and their company to future employers. Ask for a review. So there's multiple different types of reviews that you can get in a company. There's 360 reviews where you review yourself, the manager reviews you, and then someone else at the organization reviews you, whether that's a peer or another manager. There's also just one-to-one reviews, but regardless, at the beginning of your internship, hopefully you set up very smart goals. So going over those goals, how you met them, I would recommend reviewing yourself and then asking them to review you on those goals and anything else, any other feedback they have as well. Ask how you can continue to help the organization, not necessarily from an ongoing job perspective, but can you keep sharing their social media posts on your own LinkedIn or on your own social media? Are there other ways that you can support them getting additional interns or new hires, or what are the pain points that you've worked on or noticed or talked to them about while you've been there, and how can you continue to support them in those things? And then you've got to ask. You have to ask for that letter of recommendation, the LinkedIn endorsement, and if they can be a reference for you on those future jobs. If you don't ask, they're not going to just come out and offer unless you built a really strong relationship with them. And so I gotta ask for it.
I have a comment on that point there, Sarah speaking. I just wanted to point out number 5, how amazing that point is, because in past internships that I had, I'm out of school now, but I remember learning from a mentor that there was just like a form, like a Google form that I could use and just create something on my own. And just on my last day, just send that out to every close person that I worked with. And they were just so willing to just fill it out. And at the bottom, I asked them very specific questions about my performance, and I just had them copy and paste all of those answers onto LinkedIn. So it really didn't have to go out of their way to do anything more, but it was just really helpful. So I love point number 5.
And that's a great idea, to create that Google form and make it as easy on them as possible. And then actually say goodbye. Like, if you're not in person, send an email to individuals, send an all staff email, whatever's appropriate and normal within the organization. But actually say goodbye and then continue to stay in touch with them. Follow them individually on LinkedIn and congratulate them on achievements. That's the best way to continue that relationship. And even if they are going to be a reference for you, so that they remember who you are and the great work that they've done. I remember interns that I've had 12 years ago who continue to stay in touch with me, follow me, ask me for advice over the years, in their career paths. And I love staying in touch with them. I worked with them for so long, and I was so invested in the early parts of their career. I love staying connected to them. And so you're not a burden, and they want to stay in touch with you, most likely. And that is all that I've got. And so I would love the chance to answer any questions. I don't know if this was too elementary for y'all, or in line with questions and concerns that you guys are having, but we did not talk about how to get an internship or questions y'all have, and I would love to take the time now to answer any of those.
I actually just wanted to chime in, similar to Sarah. I've had one of those points really resonated with me, just the one about emailing the supervisor or the manager every week with what you've done that week. And I've never done it quite that way, but I will say that I've had a lot of internships, and the time just flies, like the end of your internship, you're kind of like, whoa, like what even happened? And in one of my more recent ones, what I did is I actually kept a log personally. So I didn't email every week, but I kept a log of what I had done. And at that particular company, I ended up coming on full time, and I was able to use the things that I had written down. I kind of produced a little, I don't know, accomplishments page or whatever, almost like a resume, like internally. And I ended up using that to negotiate my salary, which was like a pretty cool experience. And it really kind of showed the value of being able to like point to specific things that you've added to the organization in your time there. So I love that, extra level of updating them weekly or maybe every other week with what you've done as well.
That's great, Maggie. Congratulations.
Yeah, so I do have a question. So this past summer, I was working for my internship, I was working in a team where I had to like complete a bunch of tasks. And sometimes it was a lot of information that I had never seen before. So it was taking me a little bit longer to digest than, people on my team that had been working on it for years and seeing that type of information. So do you have any advice on like how to navigate, letting the team know that, hey, this task might take me longer than it might take you, and just letting them know that, it's going to take me a little longer to understand some of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just be upfront with them about that and say, I've never done this before. Ask if there's tips of how to do things faster and how to get up to speed faster. Sometimes they might be using like a shortcut or a software that you don't even know about and you're spending all this time. And if you were doing, that happened to me as an intern. I used to do one task super manually. And then at the end of my internship, found out that everyone had this like one Excel shortcut that they would do it on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have saved the company 5 hours a week that they're paying me to do something, So by being upfront with them, by asking for shortcuts, asking if you can watch and shadow other people doing it to see if how they're doing it, if faster. If you don't have time to or the ability to shadow someone, you can ask them to record their screen. So there's a great program, it's free, called Loom, Loom, where your manager or your colleagues can record their screen as they're doing a task and then watch that and see how they do it. And they can narrate it as well. So it doesn't take any extra time on your managers, and can be a great way for you to learn as they're doing it as well. But by just being transparent with them, and it might take you a little bit longer. I mean, it took them a little bit longer when they were starting it too. And so by being patient with it, and by maybe putting in extra hours if you need to get up to speed and to fulfill, if there's quotas or whatnot, recognize, yeah, you might put more hours in now and you'll get up to speed with that by learning to how to do it faster. Is that helpful, Faith?
Yeah, definitely. I think whenever I was doing the different tasks over the summer, that was like one of my, I guess, I wasn't as good as communicating. And so, yeah, that's definitely good.
Yeah.
It is really jarring to go from a classroom to an internship, I think, because in a classroom, you're not having to communicate very much, really. So it's a learning curve for sure.
And I mean, the biggest thing that we talk about is like in a work or in a school environment, you have different classes, and you do have to manage your time between the different classes and communicate that your manager or your professor, excuse me, is communicating expectations to you. And if you don't meet those expectations, it's on you. In a work environment, you might have multiple managers assigning tasks to you as well. But if you don't meet those expectations, it's a reflection on you, but it doesn't really impact you. It impacts the entire team. And so that's a totally different level of stress and stress management. And all of your managers will communicate their activities as the highest priority. And so you're having to learn how to self-regulate and self-manage, and then also manage up and push back on managers and say, I'm sorry, I know you need this by 3 o'clock, but this so-and-so needs this at 10 and so-and-so needs this at noon. And it's just not realistic for me to get this at 3. Can I get it to you by 5? Or can I get it to you at 8 a.m. tomorrow? And, some of that pushback can be really stressful for young professionals as well. So you're very not alone in that and in this transition. What we're hoping to do as part of our business is also share with businesses what that transition looks like. So as much as we're trying to shepherd young professionals through the transition, also can educate businesses a little bit better on what it's like working with entry-level professionals and how to make sure that they have a really awesome experience, because you're saying you can't hire anyone and you can't retain anyone. Well, let's onboard these entry-level professionals in a little bit better way and understand what they've been dealing with through this transition. So hopefully we can work together.
Yeah, I would also say, oh, go ahead. I've talked too much. Go ahead, Abhishek.
I'll be here. I was just going to add, I'm from the AAB, and I graduated this past May. But one thing one of my mentors instilled in me, and this goes back to your question, Faith, about kind of workload and differential workload, or maybe competencies coming into a new role, were 2 words: context and contact. And I began practicing those, like developing that skill really quickly. And by that, I think what really comes through is like, when you join a new role in an internship or a full-time role, I think your manager and your direct people leader becomes this like the one person that you're really interacting with. But that can be limiting in a certain way. So one thing that really helped me was scheduling meet and greets with people that we collaborated with on our team. And finding an informal kind of third party who I can have more frank and candid conversations with if I had any quick questions. So just getting to know the people that we're going to be working with, how we're serving their functions, and establishing informal relationships with them helped me understand my manager better, because they had all these background experiences with my manager or the direct people that I'd be working with. And those tidbits of information circled back more frequently than not, and usually in a very coincidental way, to streamline my workflow or add context to my relationship with my manager.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
I like this so much. As I was listening to Allie, I was thinking about how awesome it would be if every intern that I've had or that we currently have did those things. I'd be like, this is amazing, because it just makes life so much easier, and you have insight into what they're doing. Because for me and with some of the interns, they might be reporting directly to someone else, but I want to know what they're up to. I want to know what their concerns are, et cetera. And so there are a couple things that kind of came to mind for me. One is this is something that I learned in my career as well, but bad news doesn't get better with time. And so like that idea of like, if you're not able to meet something, or you thought something was going to work out and for whatever reason, it's not feasible, instead of like furiously trying to come up with alternative solutions and like not tell anyone until you've figured out the right solution, that right solution may not happen. And so it's really that communicating upwards and saying, hey, I found this out. I'm working on these different, alternate possibilities, and I'm going to keep you updated. Like, just, it doesn't get better if you wait. And so that's a really huge one that you talked about. And then for me, something that I think about with both interns and employees, one of the best traits is proactive. So someone who isn't just waiting for someone to say, hey, you have the skill set, could you do X, Y, and Z? But instead says, I identified that we're not doing these things that I think we could do, and I got a plan, or I've seen these things I could help with, et cetera. That being proactive is so huge, and it really drives companies forward. And that's another thing that the internships, whether you're getting a paid internship or you're doing an internship for course credit, et cetera, that can very easily translate into a full-time job offer. I've had internships that did that. I think we've heard that already. And so treating it very seriously, whether or not you're like financially compensated, and taking it seriously. Sorry, son is like, it's like it's dinner time. He's like real active right now. But I think that's a key piece. And then I think Abhishek was kind of touching on this, the idea of actually setting up time with other team members. I've really been impressed when I've seen people do this, where they're like, hey, I might be working in this particular department or with this particular person, but I want to learn what other people are doing here at the company. And so setting up, just a 30-minute coffee chat, Zoom, whatever, so that they get known throughout the organization. It really means a lot in terms of your kind of personal reputation, and people really knowing who you are, and then wanting you to come back full time, or giving you that glowing reference because you really went like above and beyond. So anyway, I just love the presentation. I think all of it really resonates.
Thanks for sharing that. And I love that bad news doesn't get better with time. It's so true. I'm going to steal that quote from you. And to steal from someone else, Brene Brown always talks about those first 8 seconds, that when you're having a scary conversation or something, she calls it like the bull ride, first 8 seconds on the bull or something like that. But those first 8 seconds are terrifying. And for me, like, I deal with really big stuff all the time, but still, no matter what I'm doing, the first 8 seconds, my heart's racing, my palms are sweaty, and I just have to take 3 deep breaths and do it. But then it's fine, and it's not scary at all, and you're in it, and you're confident, and you know what you're talking about. And so as long as you're solution oriented, and to Rena's point, also proactive in it, you'll be fine. Anyone have anything else? This is such a fun conversation, and I'm so grateful to be included and to join you guys this evening.
Yeah, I was going to pop in and ask another question. So the internship that I had this summer was an accounting internship. So I was doing a bunch of like, I guess, small like tests that were kind of boring, I guess. But I didn't realize that 8 hours, and it was a virtual internship, so I didn't realize that 8 hours of doing those type of tests would be so draining, especially because I'm a homebody myself. So I was kind of excited for a virtual internship, but I didn't realize that that lack of like social interaction with different coworkers was going to affect me so much. And I think that especially like now with the pandemic and everyone's getting used to virtual, there's going to be a lot more integration of virtual working and work from home. So how do you manage that working from home without that social interaction?
I'm going to address the first part of what you talked about first, and then I'll answer that. But I think a lot of times people get really discouraged in internships when they don't like what they're doing. But as much as an internship can help you get the job that you want, it also is a great way to eliminate what you don't want to do. For me, when I was in college, I started my internships when I was a freshman. I went to UT. I started interning my second semester of my freshman year. I was a public relations major. I loved PR. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I'm not going to say like I didn't get a lot out of college, because I definitely did. But in public relations, there's just not a lot you can learn in the classroom. You learn it from doing. And first I started in-house with a startup. Then I went to a nonprofit. Then I went to another bank, like a bank. And then I finally found an agency, and that's when I fell in love with what I was doing. And I knew that I liked parts of the job. And I read a book years ago about like, take your day and divide it into 30-minute increments and write out every single thing that you do, which is a really crazy thing to ask of someone, because you do hundreds of things a day, and including like scheduling meetings, walking to class, walking to work, talking to a colleague, writing something for work, or coding, or whatever it is that you're doing. And then think about the moments that time flew by, and then try to make a career out of that 30 minutes. And so even if you had a terrible experience in your internship, or you didn't like the minute tasks that you were asked to do, that type of activity could still help you eliminate, all right, I don't want to do this type of accounting work, or whatever it was. It's still a great opportunity that you had to have that experience, to know that you maybe don't want to do that, or at least not in a remote environment. So that was kind of a tangent, but I think is still a valuable exercise and something to think about if you're not having a good experience. But then how you manage remote work, it's really hard for me. I really like being around people. And so I've recently gotten, I have young kids at home, and it's way too hard for me to be at home. So I recently got a co-working space just so I can have that human interaction. And I was worried about the distractions that it would cause to like be in it. I moved out of an office, even in the co-working space, and into like a fully open space, because it's separated enough that I felt comfortable with COVID restrictions. And I'm able to be so much more productive because my energy levels just grow when I'm around humans. Zoom just doesn't do it for me in the same way. I was like sneaking off to coffee shops and sitting outside, but I live in Houston and it was just way too hot to be outside. And so that's a way that's really helped me with that specific energy level. In terms of communicating with colleagues or networking, I set up I have Calendly, which is a free tool that connects to your calendar and shows availability. And it's a really easy way for other people to schedule a meeting with you. And so I use Calendly, and I'll schedule 15-minute check-in meetings with people and just say, hey, schedule a 15 minutes with me. Let's just grab a cup of coffee, just like we would in the kitchen, or by the water cooler, or by the coffee pot, or the snacks. And let's just connect. I just want to hear how your day was or weekend was. I know you went to Formula One, is that what it's called? I want to hear about it. Grab 15 minutes on my calendar that work for both of us. And that has been a really great way to stay in touch with people. I've done happy hours over Zoom. We've done trivia nights over Zoom. And those things are just scheduled among colleagues, not necessarily top down. There's other things like people do. I've never done it, but like book clubs on topics that, books or whatever that different people in the office might be reading, whether it's like required reading for everyone at a certain level, or just a fiction book that everyone was talking about, or talking about shows, whatever you can find things in common with. It can be really hard to build that relationship, especially if you're never in person. We had one intern over the summer, or maybe it was in the spring, who reached out to us and was like, I know we're supposed to stay with very professional communication with our managers, but my manager just started talking to me about this Netflix show that she's watching, and I'm watching it too. Can I respond back to her? And we're like, yes, absolutely. That's how you build relationships. That's how, you're going to gain more trust from her, because you'll have a shared interest in something. They ended up talking through about this Netflix show on Slack. We were kind of coaching her through it because she was really nervous about like how to not misstep the conversation. And then the next day, that manager reached out to us, said how much they loved her, and that they were going to be offering her a full-time position. And so it's those, tiny conversations where you take the relationship past just the tactical work that can really start to build a relationship and take you from, oh, this intern who I'm checking in with every once in a while, to someone that you really want on their team. So I know it can be hard and it can be scary, and it's a delicate balance, especially on Zoom, to know like when it's appropriate to chime in. But if you're on Zoom and not Slack or email and doing it in like a, let's grab coffee, I would love to pick your brain and roll in any advice you have for me, people will take 15 minutes.
Can I add something there actually?
Please.
Yeah, so I'm AAB, so it's been a while since I've done an internship, but I will say that it depends on the work culture a little bit, but I know I've had jobs that have been remote, or at least partially remote, where we had a really good sense of like collegiality and just, you didn't feel alone in your job. And it was in large part because of group chats. And I think probably there can be some similar feelings of like, oh, am I being too unprofessional in the group? Like, it's probably a scary thing to venture into as an intern who's new to the company. But that can be one way. It's just like, even while you're doing your work, you can be having a group chat running with like some of your colleagues and like sending an interesting, like a funny story or like a news thing or funny gift that you found, like there's like a lot of funny stuff you can do that way to feel more connected to your colleagues. And I also think there's value in that, even from a professional standpoint, because it's often the case that people want to hire people who are fitting in well with the team, right? It's not just about your relationship with your manager, it's about how you jive with the whole team. And that can be one kind of, build those relationships horizontally as well as the vertical relationship with, management.
Yeah, great point. We do a lot of those. We've got tons of Slack groups, and it's about people who like are working together on teams. They're all over the country, but they, have to make decisions together every day. And so we have Slack groups for them, but then they end up, like sending all kinds of stuff to each other.
And that's the fun part. That's what makes work fun, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's where the true relationships are formed. Yeah. And one other thing is they set up the Slack group. It was not like management set up the Slack group. They were like, we're talking and we're having these, we're hopping on Zoom constantly, or, we're setting up direct conversations on Slack or email. Let's just set up a Slack channel so that we can just constantly be having this dialogue. And then it turned into a different relationship. What's AAB? I don't know what that is.
The Alumni Advisory Board. So no longer a student. I'm like an alumni, so yeah.
Got it.
So like Abhishek and I think Rena is also AAB. I think there are a couple of AAB people on this call.
Great. All right. I don't know if we only have an hour. So it was really great connecting with you guys. My email was in the end of the presentation, but I'll put it in the communication here as well. Please feel free to reach out to me. And if anyone is interested in the Ampersand program, it is opening up applications on November 1st for the spring, ampersandpro.com.
Oh, can I ask, Allie, if we've like come across someone who we think might be interested in your services, either on the internship side or on the professional side, what's the best way to connect them with you? Is an email best, or do you have an intake form or anything like that?
LinkedIn or email, and then both applications are on the website. It's completely free to professionals and businesses. So send them our way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
May I get a quick picture with everyone? So anyone who's just on call right now, on video, to just smile, and I'm just gonna do a quick screenshot. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
You got my son in there. That was like a bonus.
I love that.
Nice. If there's no picture, it didn't happen. So.
It was so great chatting with you guys all. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Thanks so much, Allie.
Thank you so much, Allie.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Allie.
Thank you.
All right. I hope that was okay.